security guard would open the gate for you. Okay, so we're going to start Sri Isopanishad, very wonderful book. We completed Bhagavad Gita, 18 chapters. Then we did, last year we did Nectar of Instruction. We completed about a week, 2 weeks ago. And now we're going to do Sri Isopanishad. All right, so before we do that, let's repeat the invocation. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So Srila Prabhupada tells us about studying these books. Try to always study our books and see our philosophy from different lights or directions. Become convinced yourself of this knowledge, and without a doubt, all of your difficulties of mind will disappear forever, and you will see Krishna face to face. So that's Prabhupada's letter to devotee, encouraging to study all his books so that we can understand the philosophy from different perspectives. And the main aspect is to become convinced of what is in Srila Prabhupada's books. And the more we become convinced, the more the doubts will be removed. The more the doubts become removed, the more we embrace the process of Krishna consciousness. And as we progress, the ultimate goal is to see Krishna face to face. And Prabhupada says in other places to enter into the dancing party of Krishna. Now, Prabhupada gave us, or instructed his disciples to set up a Bhakti Shastri study course. And in the Bhakti Shastri study course, there's Bhagavad Gita as it is, Sri Isopanishad, Nectar of Devotion, and Nectar of Instruction, the 4 books. Then for life study, that means we continue studying this practically for our whole life. Bhagavad Gita as it is, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and Nectar of Devotion. Now we're going to see how Srila Prabhupada was very expert in presenting the script, in presenting his books, but making sure that he would cover different arguments that people would have, different types of people that are exposed to his books. And one category of or group of people that are exposed to Srila Prabhupada's books will be those who, what we call, are interested, or they come from the background of Vedic background. That means they only accept the truth coming from the Upanishads. It's like when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj would, when he counteracted the Brahmanas and they had to debate who's more glorious, the Brahmanas or the Vaishnavas, then they told Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj that if you're going to debate, we don't want you to use any of the Puranas, any of the Itihasas, different other branches. We only want you to use the Upanishads, and then also specific parts of the Upanishads. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj said no problem, because our acharyas also explained, and you will see Shiji Mahaprabhu also instructed Goswamis that scrutinizingly study all the revealed scriptures and establish bhakti. So they, because if I just give, like for example, Srimad Bhagavatam, this is a Vaishnava book. Chaitanya Charitamrita is a Vaishnava, Gaudiya Vaishnava book. The books that the Goswamis gave us is Gaudiya Vaishnava. So if I quote the Gaudiya Vaishnava books to one of the other sampradayas or other philosophers, they'll say, sorry, that's your book. How can you quote from your own book to establish your own point? Doesn't make sense. So you need to quote from our book, then and verify your point, then we can appreciate. So Srila Prabhupada gave us Sri Isopanishad, and we'll see as we go through the class the breakdown of how this fits in. And Sri Isopanishad is coming from the Shruti, which is actually the Vedic text, and it's one of the first Upanishads. So therefore, Krishna consciousness is now being established from Sri Isopanishad, which is one of the first Upanishads laying the foundations And Sri Upanishad is a very, very important book. It's the first one, most important. And all the Upanishads, they lay the building blocks for life. If we want to know, like some people will ask, what are the laws in life? How should I live life? Or why things are happening? Then the Upanishads will tell us very clearly why these things are happening. And from the Shruti, so Shruti is what's heard coming down the succession. Shruti is what the sages would share, you in terms of their realizations, etc. They would then share what they heard from the Vedas, and that also becomes part of the Vedic body, and that's Bhagavad Gita. Now we know the Shruti here in this case, or Smriti in this case, is the Mahabharata, and in the Mahabharata, Bhagavad Gita is there. So Prabhupada gave us the Bhagavad Gita as this. And then another aspect of the Vedas is called Nyaya. That means establishing the Vedic philosophy through logic. And Srila Prabhupada gave us Srimad Bhagavatam in that. So by giving us these books, Prabhupada basically covered the whole aspect of Vedic philosophy. And we'll see how that fits into going into the next few slides. So in India, there are many philosophers, many types of thinkers. And you could group those thinkers in two groups. One is called Astika and other is Nastic. Now, generally, these words are used to say those who are non-atheistic and those who are atheistic. Those who believe in God, like those who follow the Vedic philosophy, they believe in God. And those who don't propound the Vedic philosophy, they are atheistic. But here, it's more in terms of those who follow the Vedas and accept the Vedic literatures. They call Astic. And those who don't follow the Vedas, they are Nastic. Those who don't follow the Vedas, you find there's generally three groups, Buddhism. And we know Lord Buddha came to deny the Vedas, to establish his eightfold principles, basically bring people on the path of Vedic philosophy. The Jainism group, Jains, they don't follow, and Charvakism. Charvakism basically means materialistic life, materialistic philosophy. That's in that group. Now, in Astika, you got the main six darshans or six philosophies, which are commonly known in India. And we're not going to go into the details, but you got Vaisheshika, you got Mimamsa, Karma Mimamsa. In Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada refers to Karma Mimamsa in a few places. Krishna used Karma Mimamsa to counteract Nanda Maharaj's argument to get all the Vrishvasis to worship Govardhan Hill instead of Indra. Because they were saying, because of rain, and because of Indra, we are nourished. And Krishna said, no, by Govardhan Hill we are nourished. And then he used Karma Mimamsa. Then yoga, famous eightfold yoga by Patanjali, Nyaya, Sankhya, and Vedanta by Srila Vyasadeva. So all these other philosophies, they don't necessarily accept the Vedic teachings completely in its totality. They have their own philosophy, which is theistic, but in order to establish their own philosophy, they extract quotes from the Vedas. That's how they accept the Vedic scriptures. Okay? And Srila Vyasadeva, who's the author, original author of the Vedas, he obviously gave Vedanta, and we now coming specifically in that line of Vyasadeva getting the Vedas from him directly. Those who follow Vedanta, you get two groups, Advaita and Dvaita. Advaita, example is Sankaracharya, means monism, all is one. And Dvaita, coming from Madhvacharya, he propounded philosophy. No, it's not all one, there is two. There's you and there's God, and they are different. Okay? And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to then give Achintya Veda Veda Tattva, which meant that no, there is one and difference. That means you are God and you're not God. So you basically, reconciling the differences here. Sri Mahaprabhu gave that. So in one sense, this is, you could say, the most complete philosophy that we have. And in order to establish that, the acharyas extracted from different scriptures to establish that. Now, may not be so clear. Okay, so the Vedic scriptures comes in two branches, Shruti and Smriti. Shruti is what's coming directly from Krishna, heard, it's coming in the cyclic succession. And so Vyasadeva gives the Vedas, especially, for example, the Rig Veda, Yarjur Veda, Atharva Veda, Sama Veda. This, the Vedic scriptures coming from Krishna, coming from Srila Vyasadeva, is given to the world. So that's Shruti, heard. Okay? And remember, Shruti previously was given verbally, orally, and the disciples were expert. They could remember, just heard once, and that's it. So that's how it was coming down. This side, the devotees who hear knowledge, they then compile scriptures, which is called Smriti, in terms of conversations or in terms of histories, and that falls under Smriti. And we're not going to go into the whole chart. We'll just touch on this link here. So there are different parts of the Vedas, Vedangas, different parts, Upavedas, different parts of the Veda, and then the actual Veda, which was then, the Vedas was one body divided into four. So the proper in the introduction speaks about that. Then there are different sections under the Vedas, and one section of the Vedas is called Upanishads. So you'll find, for example, let's say if you take Rig Veda. So Rig Veda has a certain section, certain philosophy, certain part of the teachings of the Vedas. And in there, you'll have Samhitas, you'll have the Brahmanas, you'll have the Arnyakas, and you have the Upanishads. You'll have, for example, prayers that are there. You'll have the rituals that are there for the demigods. And you'll have the requirements, what's required. And then you'll have the Upanishads, which talk about the benefit of doing that sacrifice, the benefits of reciting these mantras, and how that will allow you to transcend the world. So the Upanishad is more the philosophical part. Now, in order to understand the Upanishads, Srila Vyasadeva gave us or compiled Vedanta Sutra. But the challenge with Vedanta Sutra is that it's sutras. It's in code form. So like the first sutra, which Prabhupada often quotes. Anyone knows? No? Atato Brahma Jignasa. It's a very famous code or slogan, sutra. Atato Brahma Jignasa, which means, technically it means now because you have got a human form, inquire into Brahman. So Srila Vyasadeva gave the scripture in code form, and then in order to expand that and explain that, he gave Srimad Bhagavatam. So Srimad Bhagavatam is basically a commentary by the author of the Vedas on Vedanta Sutra. And that is how we have Srimad Bhagavatam, which is in essence the commentary or the essence of the Vedas or the Vedanta. Now, in the Smriti, the most important that you have to remember is Puranas, and the Ityasas, which is the Mahabharata and Ramayana, basically are Ityasas. Okay, so that's just in brief the different divisions of the Vedas. So Shri Upanishad, it means the knowledge that brings one nearer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Isha means controller, Shri means auspicious or Srimati Radhavani. Isha means supreme controller, and you'll find that the Upanishads are not directly telling us about Krishna. It's not, no Upanishad says the supreme controller is Krishna. The Upanishads are philosophical and they don't focus specifically on any personality in that sense. They just say the supreme or the absolute truth or the controller. That's it. Because it says here, those scriptures which help the practitioner achieve liberation and bring the person closer to the Lord are called Upanishads. Upa means near and Nishidata means bring. Or the word may be divided as Upa and meaning near, which Ni meaning certainly, and Sat meaning to loosen, destroy, or tame. That knowledge which loosens bondages with certainty, destroys the ignorance concerning the Jiva Swarup and brings one close to the Lord's called Upanishad. So Bhagavad Gita brings you closer to Krishna, therefore it's called Upanishad. And also Upanishad means you sit next to your guru and ask questions. So Arjuna was sitting next to Krishna and asking questions. Therefore it's called Upanishad. Now, Isha means controller. And here I said Upanishad means to sit closely. We mentioned the Upanishads, they give philosophical import to the Vedas. In the purport to Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada says, when the activities for sense gratification, namely the Karma Kanda chapter, are finished, then the chance for spiritual realization is offered in the form of the Upanishads, which are part of the different Vedas, as Bhagavad Gita is part of the fifth Veda, namely the Mahabharata. The Upanishads mark the beginning of transcendental life. So you will see, like, as you mentioned here, the different parts. So each of the four Vedas are divided into four sections, and generally people are interested in the first two sections, which is Karma Kandya, mundane religiosity, how to get things. You know, I want a good wife, I do this puja. I want money, I do this puja. I want a good job, I do this puja. I don't like someone and I need to do something. Okay, this is the puja I need to do. So very materialistically focused. Those who want to renounce life, that's the third section. And really those who want to now achieve transcendence, that's where the Upanishads help. And 96%, so if this is 100%, 96% is Karma Kanya, very fruitive, ritualistic. Only 4% is talking about Upasana Kand or worship of Vishnu. And even out of that, worship of Krishna is even rare. Yes. Because that's what people want. So remember, the Vedas is like a reference manual. So there's many parts of the Vedas which cover, like for example, in these sections in the Vedangas, there's different aspects of creation, different skills, different knowledge about different arts that are given. So all complete knowledge is given in the form of Vedas. But in terms of these four Vedas to help people, most 96%, you could say, of the people want some fruitive things. Like we come here to enjoy. So they want to enjoy, but they want to enjoy. And Krishna says, okay, if you want to enjoy, no problem, enjoy, but follow the Vedas. Because if you enjoy and follow the Vedas, you're in contact with transcendental scripture, and that will slowly purify you. That's Krishna's main motive. Yeah. Otherwise, if they don't follow the Vedas, then it's sinful and they degrade. So in order to help them gradually, then Krishna's, Vyasadeva has given them the Karma Kanda section. We know Srila Vyasadeva, after compiling the Vedas, is not satisfied, and that's when Narad Muni tells him now he must give Srimad Bhagavatam and give Krishna directly. So it's what people want. It's one of the first, you could say, aspects of trying to get customers, right? Give people what they want. So Krishna knows, if Krishna had to just come and say, surrender to me, nobody's going to listen. That's why surrender to me in Bhagavad Gita is in the last chapter, 18th chapter. Krishna had to go through chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, and had to use Arjuna to ask all the questions. Right at the end, 18th chapter, then he says, okay, Sarva Dharman Parityaja. So people don't want to surrender. And Vyasadeva, understanding that, gave people, okay, you don't want to surrender? Still, I'm going to give you the medicine. So how can I give you the medicine, so that you're happy, you're getting what you want, at the same time, slowly you're getting purified. And that's why the Brahmanas, if they are advanced, they are able to expertly take the student higher and higher by inquiry. If they themselves are stuck, it becomes very difficult. So Sri Upanishad is divided into 6 sections. The first section is the introduction, which we're going to cover today. Then there's the invocation to mantra 3. In this section, the perfect relationship between the Lord, the living entity, and his creation as described. So that's the focus. Then mantras 4 to 8, the inconceivable Lord can only be known by the Mahabhagavats. Mantras 9 to 11, comparing the cultivation of knowledge and missions. 12 to 14, comparing worship of the absolute to worship of relative. And 15 to 18, prayers for revelation of the Lord's personal form. So you'll see, Isopanisad, generally Upanishads, they like impersonal, but because this is the first Upanishad, it's very important. And not only that, it's talking about the Lord's personal form. And the prayers are very clear in that. Okay, so it's establishing God or the creator, the source, as a person. So we're going to cover the introduction. In the introduction, Srila Prabhupada established the definition of the Vedas, the need to take guidance from the Vedas, and Sri Upanishad is direct-based literature being part of the Shruti. So the introduction wasn't specifically written by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada gave a lecture which was delivered in London, Conway Hall, 1969, and the devotees took this lecture and put that as the introduction for Sri Upanishad. And we're going to now go over the introduction, different pages, different sections of it. We're not going to read all the purports, but we're going to address or cover these essential points, because in this lecture, Prabhupada covers many, many important points that we need to remember, which then becomes an introduction for Sri Upanishad. So the first one is we have 4 defects. Thus, we need the Vedas. We have 4 defects and we need the Vedas. Anyone can tell us the 4 defects. Even one of them. Right, we make mistakes. Imperfect senses. Anger. So those are secondary mistakes. These ones, the specific ones that we're talking are like the main 4 mistakes, and they breed all other forms of incompleteness, like anger, etc. These are all other forms of incompleteness, all other forms of mistakes. Another one, illusion, and cheating propensity. Right. So Prabhupada first establishes what are the Vedas. What are the Vedas? Veda means knowledge. Any knowledge you accept is Veda. For the teachings of the Vedas are the original knowledge. Okay, so Veda means knowledge. Any knowledge can be classified as Veda. So the Vedas is the original body of knowledge. In the conditioned state, our knowledge is subjected to many deficiencies. Difference between a conditioned soul and a liberated soul is that the conditioned soul has 4 kinds of defects. The liberated soul does not have defects, especially the 4 defects. The conditioned soul has these 4 defects. Now, if the conditioned soul has the 4 defects, what can they not give? Perfect knowledge. The pure devotees of the Mahabhagavats or the liberated soul, they don't have the 4 defects. So what can they give us? Pure knowledge. But they don't invent pure knowledge. It's not like they start thinking about knowledge. No, they simply receive the knowledge and distribute that knowledge. Whereas those who are conditioned souls, they are therefore defects, yet what they do? They cheat. They present themselves like, see, we're giving perfect knowledge. So that's where the cheating propensity also comes in. So the 4 defects. Okay. The first one, to commit mistakes. Is human, famous statement. And you can see you're supposed to go into the plane. Some people will obviously take the wrong path and end up on the wrong side. And making mistakes is a conscious act. And we often know we make mistakes. Then illusion. Although a person is fool number 1, Prabhupada says in the purport, he poses himself as very intelligent. Then cheating propensity. Although a person is fool, that's Americans. So this one here, illusion. So that one was cheating. Illusion is focused where. No, illusion is I am thinking I'm this body. That is illusion, and I'm not this body, and my focus is all around the body. So that's illusion. Then this is cheating propensity. That I'm fool number 1. I'm illusioned. I make mistakes, yet still I'm posing as very intelligent. One American comedian said, "I've already made up my mind. Don't confuse me with the facts." I made up my mind. Don't confuse me with the facts. In this bliss. So if you're going to give him the facts, you're going to change his mind, and they don't like it. So therefore, whatever I know, I'm happy with. Don't disturb me. Don't change me. I'm intelligent enough. And you'll see some people are like that. I normally use the example of my brother, my elder brother. I had an SS Science of Civilization. So I told him one day, please read this book. And he said, no, don't give me the book. Because I know if I have to read it, it's going to impact my conscience. So best not read it. Because they want to stay in ignorance, so okay, no problem. We won't force you. Imperfect senses. Prabhupada in the purport says, can you show me God? You can't even see your hands in the dark room. Okay, so if you can't see your hands in the dark room, how are you going to even see that which is beyond matter? Prabhupada sometimes say you can't even see your eyelids without a mirror. And yet you want to see God. Not that you can't see God, we can show you God, but you have defective instruments. And when you purify your instruments, your eyes, then you can see God. In Sanskrit, these words, actually, Prabhupada Chaitanya talks about Brahma is common mistakes, Pramada, illusion, Vipra, lipsa, cheating, and Karana, Tavan, is imperfect senses. So we cannot therefore expect knowledge, Veda, with these imperfect senses. With all these deficiencies in conditioned life, we cannot give perfect knowledge to anyone. Nor are we ourselves perfect. Therefore, we accept the Vedas as they are. So this is why we need the Vedas. This is why we need Vedic knowledge, because we are conditioned, we are imperfect, we cannot give perfect knowledge. And for me to get perfect knowledge, I need a perfect source. And that's Krishna, that's coming from the Vedas. So generally, when we're speaking to people, and people will ask, well, why we have books? Why, you're getting knowledge from these books? Because these books are coming from Krishna, they're coming in the Vedic source, and the Vedas are pure because they're coming from God who's pure, then we accept that. And we cannot give perfect knowledge because we have imperfect senses. Then Srila Prabhupada talks about Vedas give universal and axiomatic wisdom. And here in this section of the purport, Prabhupada is, or in this part of this lecture, Prabhupada is counteracting a famous statement that your Vedas are also limited knowledge from one culture, India. People think that the Vedas or Bhagavad Gita is a Hindu book. Like when you tell someone about Bhagavad Gita, they'll say, I don't understand the book. But it's not a Hindu scripture. So the Vedas also, even though they're coming from the East, they may be taken as Hindu scriptures, but they're not Hindu. Yeah, the sun rises in the East, it's not Indian. Okay? It's universal. The same thing, the Vedas is universal axiomatic wisdom. It's not that the Vedas are only applicable for the Hindus. I normally give, like from Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Dehinos manyatadehe komaram yovanam jana. The soul passes the body from boyhood to youth to old age, and in the time of death passes another body. Only the Hindus go through that? No, everyone goes through it. Okay? If it's only for Hindus, that means only Hindus should go through it. Only Hindus should die. Everybody else should be alive. But it's universally applicable. So in order to establish this point, Prabhupada says the Vedas are not Hindu. We are not Hindus. Our real identification is Varnashram. Varnashram denotes the followers of the Vedas, those who accept human society in 8 divisions of Varna and Ashram. Okay? 4 Varnas, 4 Ashram, 4 social orders and 4 spiritual orders. So it's interesting here, Prabhupada is saying we're not Hindus, but we identify ourselves as Varnashram. And in the purport, Prabhupada talks about how the 4 spiritual orders, 4 social orders, the Brahmanas, the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas, the Sudras, this is all universal. These groups are everywhere. Even though in India it may be specific like that, but in America, these groups are there and they may not be known by those names. But you get the intellectual class, you get the warrior class, you get the business class, and you get the labor class. Okay, so the classification is still there. And why is the classification there? Not because people have created the classification and put people in the groups. It's because it's natural coming from the Vedas, and therefore the classification is there. And then another aspect Prabhupada talks about, these natural classifications are found everywhere. The Vedic principles are accepted as axiomatic, and they cannot be any mistake. And Prabhupada gives the example of cow dung in the purport to show or to give one evidence of axiomatic and universal. Cow dung, from the Vedic perspective, is pure. The Vedas say all stool of animals is impure besides cow dung. And therefore, in India, everyone knows you can touch cow dung, you can use it in different ways, and it's antiseptic and it's pure. Whereas all other dung we talk about. So it's not like it's not that in India there were a group of people trying to figure out now, let's see which dung is pure. And we'll try, donkey dung, buffalo dung, cow dung, horse dung. No, they weren't going and experimenting dung. It's the last thing somebody would even think of, right? Because stool is stool. Nobody would start thinking. What to imagine? Imagine the doctors trying to think, okay, which urine should we use, to cure people? No, nobody would even think like that. But in India, in Ayurveda, they use cow urine. So where did they get this knowledge? From the Vedas. And why is it accepted? Because it's coming from a perfect source. And it's axiomatic, which means that it's not that this only holds true in India. Robert gives different points that many scientists have researched and proven their fact. So therefore, cow dung is accepted as completely pure. Vedic knowledge is superior to pratyaksha and anubhav. So there's in this section of the lecture, Prabhupada talks about uh, three categories or three sources of knowledge. You can receive knowledge, acquire knowledge in three ways. First one is pratyaksha, direct perception, direct evidence. And direct evidence is not good because our senses are not perfect. Then by anuman, this is anuman, inductive knowledge. It may be like this, hypothesis. And even that is not perfect. So let's look at pratyaksha. How many straight lines are here? None. How many straight lines? Yes. If you know the science, you'll say, oh. If you had experiments, if you knew this, then you say, oh, but actually, it looks like they're bent. But because the way the blocks are laid, it looks like it's bent, but actually, there's all straight lines. Yeah. So you'll see they're all straight lines. Now, that's imperfect senses. We'll give some other examples. In Anuman, hypothesis or induction, deducing, these monkeys, they behave like human beings. So therefore, human beings must be monkeys. Right? Or human beings must have come from monkeys. See? So that's induction. That's how Darwin obviously figured out his theory. Because the monkeys, they behave, their behavior, they look so, human-like, they act so human-like. So there must be some link. It's like one person asked the Prabhupada, how come you people, like the Hare Krishnas, have the Vedas, and we Westerners didn't get the Vedas? So Prabhupada replied, because your ancestors were swinging on the tree. Because your ancestors were swinging on a tree, then you didn't get the Vedas. Our sages, we got the Vedas. So Darwin definitely didn't get it right, because by induction, by anuman, by hypothesis, you cannot get perfect knowledge. I mean, imagine how they're going to, this concept is scientists, they got imperfect senses. So with the imperfect senses, what do they create? Instruments that are imperfect. Okay? Which means those instruments, by nature of imperfect senses, will be imperfect because they create by imperfect beings. So you cannot get perfect knowledge. That's why the knowledge gets revised. And yes, by technology, they can make more sophisticated equipment, but that equipment will still be defective. And at a certain point, you can't even go to the transcendental level, because for you to see Mahavishnu, right, no mundane telescope is going to see Mahavishnu. You need transcendental eyes to go beyond matter. So even if they make the most powerful of all telescopes, they will not see Mahavishnu because the telescope is made of matter. Question. Who? So not they wouldn't revise it because there's no need to revise. But the presentation may change. But there is absolutely no question of revising. That means, version 1, version 2, version 3, because we forgot this, we just need to add this, or we made a mistake here. So there's no question of revision. Right? It's not like a software, you create the software and with a bug, right? Then we found out with a bug, we just need to upgrade the firmware. There's no bugs in the Vedic knowledge. I normally give the example, since it's a recent one, is I give the example when I was in school. So the year I was in school, that, maybe whatever, 5th grade or 6th grade, they said the scientists have discovered the atom. And it went all over, practically all the textbooks, and it was like a whole thing. This first, the first discovery of the history, and they found they discovered that atom is like a billiard ball. So that year I studied, the atom was like a billiard ball. We thought, wow, now we know like the foundational building blocks of matter, atom, and it's like a billiard ball, invisible, indivisible, one particle. The next year in my science school, the teacher said, actually, they've revised the science textbook because now the scientists have come up and they've advanced now. And because of the advancement, they've discovered that the atom is not like a billiard ball. It's actually like a raisin bun. It's got other particles in there. And that's also indivisible. It's got electrons and it's indivisible. Or more like a raisin bun, because that next model comes. Then the following year, I went to school science. They said, oh, actually now the scientists have become more advanced, and they discovered now it's not like a raisin bun, it's like a Rutherford's model. So now you have nucleus, you have the electrons and protons around it. And the electrons and protons are indivisible, cannot be divided further. So we thought, wow, this is advancement. From billiard ball to raisin bun to Rutherford model, they're really advancing. See, they're giving us perfect knowledge. Only when you start reading Prabhupada's books, you figure out you've been cheated also. See, you're a fool also like them, because you're accepting them as giving perfect knowledge. Then in university, years later, then we heard actually even the protons and electrons can be divided into positrons and positrons, etc. So then even the electrons can be divided. And they said, no, now that's it. Now you can't go further. And wait a few more years, and they'll figure out. Now, what's interesting, when you read the Bhagavatam, the third canto, we find time coming from the atom. And in the third canto of the Bhagavatam, a very clear description of the atom is described. Right down to how time is, the atom is based on the time factor. See? And in minute detail. So really, they didn't have to go through all that research. Just had to go to the Bhagavatam. They would have got the proper understanding. So yes, there is no question of revising the Vedas. Here's a dot in the center. So gaze at the dot, right, for a few seconds. And after a few seconds of gazing, just focus on the dot and then move your head back and forth and see what happens. Yeah, circles go in opposite directions. If it doesn't go, don't worry. Because that's also one of the illusions, right? But you'll see, when the circles are going opposite directions, something's wrong. Okay? How about that picture? I guess if you look at that picture is very, it's on my screen. It's still, if you see that circles should all be moving. Okay, but the point is, what you see may not be the truth. And there are many on the internet. You can find many such cases of, where you see something, but it's actually totally different from what others may see, because our perspective is different, and therefore we cannot give perfect knowledge. Then Srila Prabhupada talks about Vedic knowledge, superior to Praksha and Anuman. So what is the Vedic knowledge? The Vedas are considered to be mother, and Brahma is the grandfather, the forefather, because he was the first to be instructed in the Vedic knowledge. And Vedic knowledge comes down by disciplic succession, Vedic knowledge is understood in this way. If you make experimental endeavor, you come up to the same conclusion. But just to save time, you should accept. Because Vedic knowledge is coming from Krishna down to disciplic succession, it is perfect. And you can verify, try to make experiments within your capacity. For certain things you can't. Just like I want to prove Brahma exists. Is that possible? No, not just, you can't take a Sputnik as Prabhupada says, go and see, let me see if Brahma exists. Not possible. If you want to see Brahma exists, you have to elevate your consciousness to that level for you to see Brahma. Sometimes people say, can you show me God? So we said yes. But are you ready to accept the process so that you can see God? For example, right, is there 702 frequency here? Yes. Now, can we hear it? No. Now, if somebody says, well, prove 702 exists here, how are we going to prove it? We need an instrument, we need a radio. Okay? And then I need to tune into the frequency. So without the instruments, I can't really prove. I need the instruments to prove. Similarly, is God here? Yes. Can you show me? Yes. How? Yeah, the instruments. Okay. So what instruments? Purify your eyes with love of God. And you can see. Okay. Otherwise, mundane eyes, you can't see. So there's a process. I need a radio to hear 702. I have to go buy the radio. I have to work for the radio. I have to get the radio. Similarly, if I want to see God, I need to get the eyes. And there's a process to purify your eyes so that you can see God. So Vedic knowledge is called Shabda Praman. Praman means evidence. Shabda means sound. So evidence coming through sound. Another name is Shruti. Shruti means that this knowledge has to be received simply by oral reception. Now, we also use oral reception as a form of learning. Parents, they teach their children through oral reception. They tell, just like a normal table generally has 4 legs. So we tell the child, this is a table, it's got 4 legs. This is a chair. This is this color. This is a bird, etc. So we educate children also in that same way. Here, we're just talking about knowledge of a vast degree. That means knowledge of the universe, knowledge of creation, knowledge of life, knowledge of the spiritual world, knowledge that's beyond just the mundane sphere. So Vedic knowledge is Shabda Praman. And of the 3, Pratyaksha, Anuman, and Shabda Praman, the Vedas do talk about 10 different ways of receiving knowledge. Here, Prabhupada is just listing 3. But there are actually 10 different forms of different ways of receiving knowledge. Pratyaksha is a very common one. Senses, people believe what they see. But because your senses are defective, you can't always believe what you see. And Anuman, logic, inference, man is mortal. I'm a man. If I'm mortal. So I'm concluding certain things. Right? So a lot of, you'll find in the worlds, if I have a thermometer and the thermometer is rising, I can conclude temperature is increasing. So I'm using different forms of induction, different forms of logic, but they still fall short when it comes to transcendence. Therefore, the best form of knowledge is Shabda Praman. Then Prabhupada talks about the Vedas is the only way to know about the transcendental realm. And this is where all other forms of knowledge fall short. This path of acceptance is called Avaroha, Panta. The word avaroha is related to avatar, which means that which descends. Materialists want to understand everything by aropanta, by argument and reason. But transcendental matters cannot be understood in this way. Rather, one must follow avarohapanta, process of descending knowledge. And we Prabhupada talked about the Vedas as the mother. So how, how many of y'all and how many people out there question their mother that is this my father? Right? Nobody questions, mommy, is this Jay Sherman? Is my father? No, they just accept, right? They just accept that my father is my father. Never ask my mother. In Kali Yuga, could be different, but generally in a cultured family, the mother, the child will know this is my father because the mother, has instructed me, has guided me, has educated me. This is your father. So Prabhupada explains the Vedas is like the mother. If you want to know the father, ask the mother. Nowadays you can do blood tests, etc., DNA test. So if you want to know the father, go to the Vedas. You want to know the Supreme Father, go to the Vedas. And the Vedas will tell us exactly who the father is. Now, when you go to the mother and says, mommy, who's my father, who's my daddy? There's your father. Now you just accept based on relationship and trust. You don't start telling your mother, nah, I don't believe you, you must be lying, I'm going to do blood tests and DNA tests. Nope. So similarly, when the Vedas tell you who the father is, then you should also accept. But most people, as soon as the Vedas say this is the Supreme Father, nah, how we know it's true, we're going to test, we're going to verify. So that faith that we put in matter or in material relationships, we should also put that faith in spiritual relationships, in spiritual relationship with the mother, with the Vedas. And it's not that you cannot verify. It's not like the devotees, are just using an example that they don't want to prove that the Vedas is true. The pure devotees, they'll be very happy to show you how to prove it. The challenge is it requires some effort and determination and time, patience to really prove. It's not like overnight I can prove it and quickly verify. No, it takes practically a complete revolution of heart consciousness to prove that Krishna is God. Because for you to see Krishna means you have to give up all your sinful nonsense. And for most people, that is difficult. They don't want to do that. But it can be, you can see Krishna. Then Prabhupada talks about Krishna is the ultimate goal of the Vedas. So even though the Vedas is a large body of knowledge, it practically has everything in it. Whatever field of knowledge exists in the mundane sphere is coming from the Vedas. All the skills, all the arts, all the faculties, everything. You name it, it's there. Agriculture, astrology, astronomy, dance, pottery, health, medicine, you name it, it's there. Because it's complete knowledge. It's complete manual. But all this knowledge that's there in the Vedas is there ultimately for you to come to Krishna. Therefore, Prabhupada says in this lecture, Krishna constant movement is completely authorized from Vedic principle. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says the actual aim of Vedic research is to find out Krishna. And if you want to search out Krishna by studying the Vedic literatures, then you will be baffled. It may be possible, but it will be very difficult. And why is it difficult? But you're going to the north, you're going to the Vedas. So you may be bewildered. Consider how vast is the Vedas. 1 billion verses in its completeness. Now it may be less because scriptures are burned and destroyed over time, but in its original 1 billion verses. That's only in this universe. In other universes, there may be more billion verses. So firstly, it's so vast. If you want to know about if you want to say, okay, I want to find out Krishna, you have to be directed firstly. It's impossible because it's so vast, it's not like it's indexed. For the sages, it was very easy because you hear it once, now you memorize it. So now, if you go to the sage and ask the sage, can you tell me about Krishna's incarnations? It's already sorted, right? Because the memory can recall very fast. Now imagine if you got 1 billion verses, and now you go ask the question, can you tell me about the incarnations? And you have now filtered through all the pages to find out, okay, here's something about incarnations. And then you go to Radha, say, here's something about incarnations, and here's something about incarnations. It'll be very, very traumatic, very difficult. And if it's in code form, so if it's in Sanskrit, it's even worse. Now you have to know Sanskrit. And if it's part of the Vedanta, which means a Vedanta Sutra, now you have to code the sutras. And most people code it wrong. Like Aham Brahmasmi. It's another sutra. So most people, how they code Aham Brahmasmi? I am Brahman. Meaning? I am God. That's how they code it. Completely incorrect. Or let's say, not completely incorrect, but not totally correct. Because yes, you are God. And Prabhupada says you are God, according to Achinta Veda Veda Tattva. Yes, you are God, but only in quality, not in quantity. So Prabhupada says, but you can very easily learn about him from his devotee. His devotee can deliver him to you. Here he is. Take it. That is the potency of Krishna's devotee. So remember we said if you want to see God, you have to purify your senses. So those who have purified their senses, who have got love, not only are they seeing God, they have God. They've captured God. Therefore, they can give God. And because the Vedas are meant to direct people to Krishna, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Vedescha sarvam aham vedya, by the Vedas I am to be known. Therefore, by going to the devotee, it becomes easier to get Krishna. And one time, Prabhupada told his disciples that I have captured Krishna in my heart, and I'm holding him for you. You simply have to come and take him and give him Krishna. So the pure devotee can deliver Krishna to us. It's far more easier than following the scriptures to get Krishna. If we please the pure devotee, we can easily get what he's got. His life, his soul is Krishna. And he wants to give Krishna because why? The Vedas that Krishna has given us is to direct us to him. So the pure devotee is very happy to facilitate or to please Krishna through that process of giving Krishna to others. And then at the last part of the lecture, Prabhupada talks about the history of the Vedas and the essence of the Vedas. So we already spoke a little of the essence, which is ultimately to give Krishna. The history of the Vedas. Originally, there was only one Veda. There was no necessity of reading it. People were so intelligent and had sharp memories that once hearing from the lips of the spiritual master, they would understand. Now, for us, that's a little inconceivable. Even today, memory stick is there, right? And even with memory stick, you like forget. Where I put my memory stick? Reading memory for memory stick. Right? Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj, he had photographic memory. He never went again to his textbooks or notes. He would read the book once, and that was all. And you can ask him any question. So if you had to read Sri Isopanisad, he'll read it once, and then you can say, okay, that's it. page 72, middle paragraph. And let him recall that. What is the middle paragraph? That's how he was able to, excel at school with flying colors. Because there's nothing you can't ask. He knows everything from the textbooks. He'll even be the teacher. So he was very, very brilliant. Just one interesting point in regards to Sri Isopanishad. When we said that Prabhupada gave Sri Isopanishad because it's directly connected to the Vedas, the Shruti part of Vedas, it's an Upanishad. And Prabhupada knew that those who are coming from the background of the Vedas, who are philosophers, who are Vedantists, who study Upanishads, they'll be attracted to Sri Isopanishad. And Prabhupada specifically chose the front cover of Sri Isopanishad. And he did not want them to change this cover. Why? Because he knew something we don't know. Naturally. Because, you can imagine, right? Like in today's world, you're distributing a book with this cover. It's like strange, right? Change the cover, make it more modernized. But, also, some Vishnu, different Vishnu, but, yeah. So the cover, Prabhupada did not want them to change because why? The cover would have a different impact on people. And because Prabhupada was Trikala Gyan, he could understand what impact he wanted to achieve for people that get this book. Because he knows the background, he knows their thought patterns, he knows how to convince them just by the cover. So when people, because let's say if I picked up Sri Isopanishad, I would have no clue what's this. Right? And I would just read. I wouldn't even have known anything about Vishnu. I would just then read, and as I'm reading, I'm understanding. But people who are coming from Vedic thought, coming from Upanishads, when they look at this, it will strike certain chords. So if I know Upanishads and I read Sri Isopanishad, I know this is first Upanishad out of all 108 Upanishads. But how come Vishnu is there? Because Upanishads don't talk about, God as a person. So immediately it would strike certain chords that only Prabhupada would know. That's why the pictures that are selected are very appropriate. And we may not know the reason, but Prabhupada obviously know. Only the reason. Right. They would immediately grasp the whole purport. But 5,000 years ago, Vyasadeva put the Vedas in writing for people in this age, Kali Yuga. He knew that eventually the people would be short-lived, their memories would be very poor, and their intelligence would not be sharp. Therefore, let me teach this Vedic knowledge in writing. He divided the Vedas into 4: Rig, Sama, Atharva, and Yajurveda. Correct. The whole world is there for our laziness. So even Vyasadeva, understanding the laziness, said, okay. He said, if you want to make money, just figure out how to fulfill people's laziness. Because you'll see everything is about, it's like you want to make a fire, okay, let's get a heater. So you don't want to, you want to walk, creates a machine that can drive. So you'll see everything is designed to cater. So even Vyasadeva, understanding this, okay, people are lazy to memorize. People who are lazy, they won't even have the capacity to memorize. So let me divide the Vedas, make it more simple, and he divided the Vedas. Vyasadeva himself wrote perfect Vedanta commentary, Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam begins with the first words of the Vedanta Sutra, Janmadhyasya Yata. And that Janmadhyasya Yata is fully explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. Vedanta Sutra simply hints at what is Brahman, the absolute truth. Quote, the absolute truth is that from whom everything emanates. This is the summary, but it is explained in detail in Srimad Bhagavatam. If everything is emanating from the absolute truth, then what is the nature of the absolute truth? That is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. So the Vedanta Sutra is given by Srila Vyasadeva, and essence of that, which is Vedanta. Vedanta. Veda means knowledge, anta, end. So what is the end of knowledge? If you have to go after one body of knowledge, one source of knowledge, one field of knowledge, one aspect of knowledge, eventually, what is that knowledge that when you attain, you don't need anything else? When you get that knowledge, you don't need to know anything else. But if you don't get that knowledge, then you'll have to keep searching, keep learning until you get that knowledge. Because when you get that knowledge, you'll be fulfilled. Otherwise, you keep hankering. It's like some people, they want to study one degree after another. Okay. And after studying so many degrees, they die. Next life, they continue. And in this lifetime, and practically consider if we took billions of births and we study in each life, right? Our brains and mind must be filled with so much knowledge, yet we're still not fulfilled because we haven't come to the end of knowledge. Right? And the end of knowledge is Vedanta. And Vedanta, the commentary of the Vedanta is Srimad Bhagavatam. The Srimad Bhagavatam is giving an explanation and commentary on the end of knowledge. Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam is focusing only on the Supreme Personality of Godhead question. And we know Srila Vyasadeva himself, after taking the Vedas and dividing it, still he was not satisfied. For the same reason, because he did not give Krishna. And when you don't get Krishna, we're going to cover that next week in the first verse. When you don't get Krishna, it will bring something to you. It will bring something upon you. I won't tell you what it is. Touch on that next week. Okay, and because of that, you will never be satisfied. There'll be something that's lacking. And that's why people keep searching and searching and searching, because internally, as the spirit soul, you're missing something. So the void that's there can only be filled by Krishna. And that's what Sri Isopanishad is going to direct us to. Okay? Because Sri Isopanishad is the building blocks, the foundation of life. If you build your life according to Sri Isopanishad, masterpiece, perfect. If you don't build your life according to Sri Isopanishad, devastation. Okay? All forms of challenges. So what the building blocks are going to be, we're going to cover that as we proceed through the different verses. So this introduction, Prabhupada basically concludes that with all these deficiencies, that means imperfect senses, or cheating propensity, illusion, and to make mistakes. We cannot give perfect knowledge to anyone, nor are we perfect ourselves perfect. Therefore, we accept the Vedas as they are. Some things in the Vedas will just not make sense. Like Bhagavatam describes, there are birds that fly from universe to universe, eating elephants. And there's Timilinga fish that eat whales. Now you're gonna try to figure out, fish eating whales. How big is the fish for it to eat the whale? And we know the whale is the biggest mammal. So like now we're trying to figure out. Then you got what's this flying bird from universe? No. So certain things just don't make sense. If you go to the 5th canto and you read about the creation, it's like, gee, this is like a real fairy tale. I mean, you can imagine the universe, the Bhumandala is balanced by elephants. And wondering what elephants are doing there. What is the size of those elephants? So when you start, going into the Vedas, certain things just don't make sense. So if they don't make sense, don't try to make sense of them. Okay, you keep them in the back burner because right now you're not ready to make sense of it. But as you progress in spiritual life, you're getting purified, you're following Upanishad, you're applying the process, then slowly these things begin to make sense. And in some cases, you get revelation of them, so you can see them. But in other cases, the faith builds up so that you can appreciate and understand. So we don't, object, or we don't counteract, because if you object or counteract the Vedas, you're basically counteracting Krishna, who's the perfect source. That becomes an offense. That's why one of the offense, the holy name, blaspheme the Vedic scriptures, in persons of the Vedic or in persons of the ritualistic paths, right? When you blaspheme those scriptures, oh, how can this demigod worshippers, the scriptures are useless, how can they promote demigod worship? That's dangerous. See, when you blaspheme the karma kanda section of the Vedas, that is also an offense to the holy name, because coming from Krishna. So we accept them as truth. And those who are practicing, we need to help them nicely, guide them nicely to a higher level of practice. But we don't blaspheme any part of the Vedas. Every part of the Veda has a certain purpose. It's like in school. In school, if you take a subject like mathematics, so there are many grades of mathematics, from kindergarten right up to university mathematics. Very complicated calculus, formula computation from basic mathematics. And even in different grades, sometimes the mathematics is incorrect. They teach you the wrong thing so that they can teach you the right thing when you're ready. So for example, they teach you -1, you can't. That's incorrect. Because in higher grade, -1, it's -2. But if you tell a child who's in grade 1, grade 2, or even lower grade, -1, he can't understand. And why he can't understand? Because it's very practical, right? I got one book in my palm. So the kid will say yes. Now I take one book away. How many books do I have? The kid will say nothing. Then you tell the kid, I'm going to take another book away. And what the kid is going to say, well, you can't do that. There's no book there. How can you take a book away? See? And then what you tell them as an adult, no, just imagine them. That's why the negative number line is called imaginary. Because that's where you need to imagine. Now, if you imagine there's a book here, okay? If I take that one book away, how many books I got? -1. See? And -2. And I put one book, I got -1. And I put another book, I got 0. And then I put another book, and I got 1. So the kids' level of imagination hasn't developed yet. They don't know what imaginary numbers is. So therefore, because teachers know that, they just tell the teacher, they teach the kid only positive number line, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. They don't go into the negative number line. And if they are exposed -1, can't. That's the answer. Yet when they come to a higher grade, now they learn -1 is -2, or negative number line. Now at that time, the pupil doesn't say, wait. My teacher in the previous grade, he taught me the wrong thing. I want a refund. School refund. He taught me the wrong thing. No, he doesn't go and say refund. In fact, he says, wow, this is far out. I never knew that. Now I know something. He's more happy. So same thing with the sections, different part of the Vedas. They're presenting things for different grades of human beings, ultimately to get them to the next grade. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, and he didn't want people to go through all this lengthy process of lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, gradual evolution, come to Krishna constant bhakti. Lord Chaitanya just mercifully wants to say, here's the absolute truth, here's Krishna, here's it, just accept and go home. Okay? And then the Goswamis, Lord Chaitanya told them to, in order to get people to convince them, just research the scriptures and establish the truth. So we have it in that sense very, very effective, very efficiently and quickly. Just by Prabhupada's books, we come to the conclusion that would take lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes. Not only of study, but of rigid application and realization. And here we have it, on the shelf. Right, as it is. We need to really take it off the shelf and study it. But these scriptures are rare. In fact, generally the Vedas were even just kept for the sages in the mountains, weren't even given to people. What to talk about the Amala Puran Srimad Bhagavatam? And now we have Bhagavatam in practically all over the planet by Prabhupada's mercy. Very, very rare, and it's unheard of. Okay, it's unheard of. So Shri Isopanishad, one of the first Upanishads, we have that by Srila Prabhupada's mercy. And as we go through the verses, next week we're going to cover the invocation, the first verse. Very, very wonderful. And as we unfold the different verses, we'll see how the verses give us foundational building blocks for life. If we simply remember those verses and apply our life according to those verses, nothing should go wrong for the future. For now, you already didn't learn Shri Isopanishad in the past, so you acted inappropriately against Shri Isopanishad. And because you acted inappropriately in the past, according you transgressed Shri Isopanishad, the reaction you're getting now. Okay, so you have to tolerate the reaction, learn Shri Isopanishad, so that now you're a little wise. Hey, wait. I need to know how to act now because I don't want the same nonsense coming to me. Okay, it's like the motivational speakers, right? Famous point: if you don't want the same thing, don't do the same thing. Right? People keep doing the same thing and they expect a different result. That's a sign of stupidity. So it's the same point. Shri Isopanishad is saying, act like this, and you'll get this reaction or this benefit or this result. If you don't act that way, you will definitely not get the result that is there. And you'll see very, very practical, very interesting, and we'll do that next week. Any questions or comments on what we've covered? So just to recap, Prabhupada established the Vedas. Vedas is basically all source of or everything that classifies as knowledge is the Vedas. Vedas are coming in this succession. We get the Shruti, that's the actual Vedic teachings, and then Smriti is the histories, the Puranas that are narrated by sages. Then we have the Vedas is perfect knowledge, and we need that perfect knowledge coming from the Vedas. We cannot give perfect knowledge because we are conditioned, and we're conditioned because of 4 defects. And because of these 4 defects, really we cannot give perfect knowledge. Now, it's not that we don't use the forms of receiving knowledge like Pratyaksha, see, or Anuman in our life. It's not that everything the scientists do is wrong. No. There are certain things that they can discover which are in line with the Vedas. So it's not like we don't like the science. If they discover things that are in line with the Vedas, we accept. Okay? If they discover things that are not in line with the Vedas, we reject. No matter how brilliant the conclusion. Like we were just, the one quotation that came about milk. So Srila Prabhupada makes it very clear, right, that it's actually a verse from the Vedas, from Padma Puran, that the cow is the most pious living entity, right? Yeah, they may, it's a mode of goodness. So the cow is designed, it's the cow, the body of the cow is the residence of all demigods. From Brahma to Shiva to Lakshmi, they all reside in the body of the cow. I normally say the cow is the most spiritual animal, Krishna conscious animal, because it is the only animal that chants God's names. In the Vedic scriptures, we know that the principal name of God is Om. Okay, Om. Now reverse that. So we know in the Vedas, if you chant Rama or Mara, you get the same benefit of chanting. Like Valmiki chanted Mara, he didn't chant Rama. So he chanted Rama in reverse and he got the benefit. So the cows are chanting Mu instead of Om. Therefore, they get the benefit of chanting Om every day. They're very, very special creatures. And therefore, the milk is nutritious for us. And that verse said, if anyone doesn't drink milk, they're like stew. So the scientists will come up and they'll research that milk is very bad for you. Now it's true, because the milk they're getting, is obviously coming from cows that are exploited what the cows are eating. Right? So naturally, that milk is going to be poisonous. You find that the Brahmanas, they only drank milk from Brahmana cows. And the Brahmana cows, they have a hump on their back. So they drank that milk. And that milk is very, very beneficial for human consumption. So anything that the scientists come up with, complementing the Vedas, very good. Not complementing, we don't agree with it. And the essence of all the Vedas is given by Srila Vyasadeva himself, who's the author. He gave Vedanta Sutra and he gave a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. So we're studying the commentary, which is Srimad Bhagavatam. Therefore, we will know the end of the Vedas, which is the conclusion, which is Srimad Bhagavatam. And if we study Srimad Bhagavatam systematically, you'll find it's a spiritual encyclopedia. We practically know so much about so many aspects that it's phenomenal and bewildering for people. And normally when they meet devotees and they ask the devotee a question, devotee answers. And they're wondering, like, where you get all this? Like, I ask you a question, you know the answer. Every question I ask you, you know the answer. It's not because we're brilliant, it's because we have the perfect source, which is the Bhagavad. And that's wonderful. Okay. No questions? We'll stop there. Thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.